Ladies and gentlemen, from Formula One, Formula Drift, and a rider herself, please welcome to the Dealer Evolution stage, Lorette Nicole.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So amazing seeing so many wide awake faces, or maybe you guys are just waking up a little bit. So excited to have you join us here for this next panel. And this is the evolution of electrification in powersports, present momentum, future vision. And I'm so excited to bring up to the stage right now David Baker, Vice President and General Manager, Powersports North America, BRP, and also Dan Quick, Global Media Director, Stark Future. So come on up, gentlemen. Hi, you two. We're a little far away. So out of curiosity for you all in the audience, are you EV dealers? Yes? Are you, and then those not nodding, are you considering it? For those also not nodding, are you just curious and you need more information? Okay, I was trying to narrow it down, but we have a wide scope of folks in the audience, so this is really exciting. Gentlemen, I would like to start with where are we in the evolution of electrification in power sports? And David, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Nicole. First off, I would say that BRP, we've been investing in the technology for quite some time already. We have developed our own power pack, our own chargers, inverters, and design the entire ecosystem around the EV ourselves internally, as we do believe that it is something that we want to control, but also ensure that we can transpose the technology from one bike to another purpose vehicle in our portfolio. So as a matter of fact, we've launched our snowmobile EV. So we have a Ski-Doo EV, we have a Lynx EV. Last year, we've launched our motorcycles EV. So we have the Pulse and the Origin. We have the Pulse here on display at the show. And last fall, we've launched our ATV EV, which is the first ATV EV in the industry. And all products, they all use the same power pack that we transfer from one product to the other. So it's an 8.9 kilowatt liquid cool engine, power pack, should I say. And the differentiation is most batteries in the industry are air cooled. And the fact that we're liquid cooled is to accelerate the charging cycle. So you go from 20 to 80% in less than 50 minutes. So this is where we're at. We do believe, though, that we're going to continue to invest in the technology. The more we invest, the more time we spend on it. We'll be able to perfect it. And it's a question of pacing ourselves, because we don't build products to sell what customer don't want. We build products that customer want. But then there's also striking the right balance between awareness and wants. So having that availability at dealerships and having a part of the portfolio that's EV will help drive the industry forward.
Okay. And Dan, what about Stark? I mean, you guys came in just throwing punches.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for everybody for being here. And as far as looking at how the industry, or where the industry is with EVs, I think there are two answers to that. And I think, as David pointed out, and it doesn't take long walking around the showroom floor here, electrification has not left any segment of our industry untouched thus far. 2 wheels, 3 wheels, 4 wheels, treads. Electrification is entering into the conversation for really every part of powersports. And I think that's something that cannot be overstated. As far as Stark, we took a far narrower and far more focused approach to be very category specific when we set out to set the world's best motocross motorcycle. In order to do that, thinking about interoperability of components into other categories wasn't really part of that calculus. It was really focusing on distilling the exact performance specifications of everything that we possibly could, including even removing the charger from the bike architecture and putting it into the charging stand, a fairly common use product, in paddocks across the world of motocross. in order to achieve our goal of being the most competitive and ideally the best option for competitive racers at the highest level.
Well, David, are consumers ready for EV and power sports?
I would say there's definitely first off, it's the early stages of EV and power sport. I think we need to acknowledge that. There is an interest, there's a curiosity from consumers, and the way I like to look at it is today when we speak about EV, we always compare it to the automobile industry, and we look at everybody's adopting it, but go back in time, 10, 15 years ago, there was not many of these around. So it's a question of building trust with customers so that they can understand what is the product, removing those barriers. We all know that one of the main barriers in power sports is range and the range anxiety. So it's a question of making sure we have that conversation with a customer. We understand what's going to be the use case of the product. If a customer shows up and wants a vehicle to go hunting for 3 days in the woods, obviously a EV product is probably not the right use case for it. But then if we're talking to a city commuter, having an electric motorcycle is probably okay because then the range is not the same. Like we know that the average American in terms of commuting, it's roughly 30 to 35 miles. And when you look at a motorcycle that has 100 miles, 90 miles, like you can commute back and forth charging whilst you're at work. So to your initial question, yes, there's initial curiosity from customers, but it's our job as OEMs to continue to invest in technology so we drive the costs down. We continue to invest in marketing so that we create awareness. We drive traffic at dealership. But our dealers also have a part to play in there, where it is a question of education to those customers. It's taking more time, most probably. It's not a sell that's easier or easy as other products because there is a session of education, and that customer will probably come in store more than once before making or pulling the trigger for the purchase.
Interesting. Really interesting. And it's interesting how EV would find the balance between a 3-day hunting trip or a commute to work. And Dan, you made a great point on our call earlier, and you said that the young demographic riders are part of the market share. Should they be considered motorcyclists?
Absolutely. I'm going to kind of take a different tack here, and it's unfortunate because I hear an often cited comment that we don't have any more young motorcyclists. We don't have any more young riders. And I would say that that is not an accurate reflection of what's going on. I think it's more a recognition of the new riders we do have just don't fit the mold that maybe this industry expects that they should fit into. And frankly, is there anything more rock and roll and motorcycling than that anyway?
No.
But no, think about it. There are more riders, and I know, like, depending on who you are and what community you're in, they're either awesome, hell raisers, or, they're hooligans or whatever they are, but they're on those, that gray area as far as registration goes about road legality, that's a different topic at a different stage. But they're on the two-wheeled electrics. They're doing wheelies. They're 12 o'clock, and they are riding. And, I mean, a lot of them ride lights out. Like, we've had plenty of them at our headquarters, and they can go toe-to-toe with some of the world's best motocrossers insofar as, like, skills and technique is concerned. And if that's not a motorcyclist, I don't know what is. So I would say that it's absolutely incumbent upon everyone here, not just the brands represented on the stage, but everybody at the dealership level. Just because some kid out there maybe didn't grow up busting his or her knuckles in the garage, working on their gas bike, their dirt bike as a kid, that doesn't make him or her any less of a motorcyclist. And that's my take on it. And frankly, I would encourage everybody to look at this new class of riders in a different light. Because if you want to talk about potential lifetime value of a customer who's going to walk into a dealership, who's going to want to eventually move into a larger full-size motorcycle, I don't know a better feeder system. I don't know a better lead source than these riders.
Yep, absolutely. Are there other new customer segments that are emerging with EV power sports products?
Well, I mean, yeah, I kind of would go back to my first comment about there really isn't a mode of transportation that's not touched by some sort of electrification. And, you know, kind of to take it back to your earlier question about are customers interested? I think they absolutely are. I think a lot of ways that we can, to David's point, see where power sports is going is to look into automotive, right? We're on, depending on what the trends are from a technology or, drivetrain in this conversation sense, we can kind of look at about a 3 to 5 year delay between what's happening in automotive and what is going to be happening or what's currently happening here in power sports. And that being the case, peak gas has occurred. That's not to say that electric four-wheel passenger vehicles are going to outpace the sale of gas cars forever. But what we do know that pre-pandemic, we had already seen from global, like either JD Power or global sales data, the amount of vehicles being sold in gas categories has continued to decline. It has reached its peak. So whether that means the future of cars is electric or fuel cell or some other thing that, Jetsons hasn't invented yet, like, I don't know. But what I do know is that people who are buying things are looking for better experiences, different experiences. And, we've done a lot of really cool things as an industry with gas. We've made some of the most amazing experiences possible for riders all over the world because of, our industry incumbents. Right now, it's very important that we begin to look into how do we create that new experience that is very, very familiar, but altogether, revolutionary. And right now, we're doing it quite well with electrics.
Love that. And David, to Dan's point, there's a lot of young, tech-savvy riders that are coming in looking at EV. And I think there's a lot of curiosity with power sports dealers. So why should they care about EV and how do they prepare?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Number one, it's a question of attracting a new customer base into the dealership. Most probably some of those folks were not into power sport per se because of the technology, ICE. Now EV is striking a chord that's closer for them. So we're hearing from our dealers that there's a new crowd of a new demographic coming into dealerships, and it's helping dealers having that conversation. And then it's breaking a barrier. And like, truth be told, there is some sense of intimidation of walking into a power sports store if you're not into power sports. But now it creates that excuse for those customers to go and walk in. And then it's on the dealer side to be well equipped and have the right information and take the time with those customers. Either it is a walk-in or a lead, a digital lead in the system. Like, people are going to ask questions about range or price. Why is it more expensive than an ICE? And why should I buy this versus that? Maintenance, ride quality. So dealers should be equipped with all this. And then how can we have our dealers better prepared to handle that new demographic and that new customer? It's on us as OEM, I do believe. And we're preparing our dealers by training them, providing the training material, all the elements I'm talking about range, training, ride quality. It's also in terms of sales process, when you have the customer walking in, the overall sales process is no different than another sales process. There's probably a few more steps in it in terms of education, qualifying, and then offering that demo ride to a customer. Because we all know that creating that emotional connection with the bike or the power sport vehicle in itself, it's a number one driver to purchase. Looking at it in a showroom is one thing, touching it, feeling it, but then going on the road, experiencing what that technology has to offer, because it is a different ride. It offers the same thrills, the same adrenaline, but then it brings other elements into the mix, which I think this is where we need to follow. And then being patient as well. Maybe that customer will come back a second time and a third time with other questions. It's a question of being patient, offering the support, and removing those barriers to purchase.
To your point, I'm really curious for all of our friends in the audience. How many of you have ridden an EV? Raise your hands. Okay, so the rest of you have not. How do you convince the riders that have not ridden an EV what it feels like?
Few elements. Like, I've been holding a motorcycle license since I was legally allowed to have a motorcycle license. And the first time I drove our bike was 3 years ago, first prototype. And I was expecting, like, my mind was geared towards expecting that vibration, that sound, the heat of the engine after a long ride. But then you step on a bike and you have zero vibration, zero noise, but then you have instant torque from the electric engine. This is where the experience is completely transformed. Going from point A to point B, or enjoying your journey, remains, you're going to the same destination, but you're doing it completely differently. And at the end of the day, I think if we want to increase our customer base, it's all about giving them an opportunity to try and have that experience. And what I would say is, what we're seeing successful dealers do is when they're holding those demo events, the lead and follow, they have to be EVs as well. Like, if you're hosting a demo event and your lead and follow on that demo events are driving ICE engine, it sends a mixed signal of either I don't want to drive an EV, and then it destroys that peacefulness around the no noise, near silent experience of the bike.
Yeah, and Dan, to David's point, demos absolutely seal the deal.
Well, I mean, without question. Look, it doesn't matter what type of riding you're into. I think there's a few consistent points of interest for riders. You know, whether you're dirt bike riding, whether you're enduro riding, whether you're into cruisers, whatever it is, it's pretty cool to feel that power, right? Okay, I got some nods. I'm not off base on this. Like, everybody likes the thrill of motorcycling. And it is impossible to fully communicate what the effortless draw of power from a direct drive electric motor does to that feeling. The absolute frictionless, effortless explosion of power. I remember the first time I rode an electric as well. It was maybe like 6 or 8 years ago, and it was a much different vehicle than what I'm representing today. I literally had to step off of it after I was done with this highway twisty section because I was like shaking. Like I could not believe how fast that like 30 to 90 power range was. And let's face it, if you're on the streets, like that's your sweet spot. That's where you're going to be doing all your acceleration. And if you're not, it's not about skill. It's not about like, I can do a launch. I can manipulate the clutch. Sure, you can. That's great. But guess what? Again, if we're talking about getting the next generation of this industry and beyond, not everybody comes from an internal combustion engine background. And I'll tell you what, one of the best ways to illustrate the benefits, the unique, distinct advantages that electric has over gas, is just go off-road. When you're talking about like going on stupid steep pitches, doing hard enduro through all kinds of crazy loose stuff on rocks, you find yourself in a jam. It's hard to get out of that jam in a gas bike. It takes you, I know I'm not the only person who's dumped bikes. It's a lot harder to get back on it and get back going and start over when you don't have an electric at your disposal. And furthermore, just because of the nature of an electric motor, you can integrate, very smooth engine holds, very smooth reverses, very smooth forwards. These are the types of like little Easter eggs of rider experiences that you're not going to be able to accurately convey until you get somebody to throw a leg over and actually put themselves, especially if you can do it in trails that they're familiar with. Like you're talking about, having dealerships. If you have a dealership that knows like the popular local route, and that's where you can do it, where everybody's familiar with, how various sections challenge them and how various sections go from a duration standpoint, and they do their own Pepsi challenge, it really is a remarkably powerful experience from a sales perspective.
Interesting. And I hear you both, and I think everyone hears you why we have to evolve from the ICE engines to EV. But a lot of times EVs come with higher upfront costs. So how does the industry address affordability and value perception?
I think on that one, it's on us as OEMs to continue to invest into the technology and drive the costs down, because for sure, again, when I compare where the automotive industry was 10, 15 years ago, and you were looking at the price of those EVs versus where it is today, it has come down significantly. And when we've launched our Pulse motorcycle last year, we've listened to the market, because one of the key elements that is keeping us awake at night is striking the right balance in terms of price positioning. Having a great product, but if it's too expensive, it's pointless, it's not going to sell. So when we've launched our Pulse motorcycle last year, we've launched it at $13,999, and after listening, we got the early feedback that customers were not ready or willing to step in at that price for the combination of range versus price. So head on, we've reduced the price of the vehicle 6 months later by $3,000. Now the Pulse is at $10,999, and we're taking a hit on it personally. And I think we're taking the challenge as an OEM to find solution to drive the cost of that technology down. We're in this for the long term, so it's not a question of making a profitable vehicle tomorrow morning. It's a question of investing in that technology so that in 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we're still going to be there, and collectively we will have built a brand new section of the industry. And by continuing to invest, that's how we're going to drive the cost down, that hands down.
Yeah. Dan, for a dealer, what's the risk of waiting too long to get involved with EV?
Well, I mean, everyone knows running a dealership is super easy. So
right.
being silly there. Obviously, a lot of these decisions are existential. I don't know if it's entirely an accurate comparison, but I think of, I wasn't working at a dealership at that time, but when personal watercraft began to really pop up and be part of the general Powersports conversation, there were some dealerships that kind of poo-pooed it, and there were some dealerships that thought that was not going to be my market's interest, and there are others who embraced it. Same thing with maybe side-by-sides. The ones who have embraced side-by-sides, and several decades ago, the personal watercraft, they've enjoyed great success over that time. And I think history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes kind of thing. Look, it may not be what brought you into this industry. It may not be what you fell in love with, what you decided to hang your hat on and be a part of every day, blood, sweat, and tears, all that jazz. That does not make it any less part of this industry. So I think it really boils down to, who do you want to serve? We heard some interesting stats on various conversations on this and the other stages yesterday about the average age of motorcyclists is increasing, and about 10 years ago, it was almost 15 years younger, right? Do you want to be the next stage of that trend, or do you want to see, new faces looking for the next thing in your dealership?
What was the ages?
I believe it was 46, if I recall correctly. Again, trying to stay in my lane. That wasn't my talk, but
That's all good.
I believe it was 46. And, from about 10, 15 years ago, it was in the 20s. You do the math on that, right? I know that, again, this is not a secret that, we've talked about that for several years, at the symposium and at AIMExpo, is that how do we bring in, again, to my point, new riders? I believe the new riders exist. We just don't have a collective willingness to embrace them just yet. There is, of course, a lot of shining examples of people doing the contrary.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, we just rolled into 2026, so looking towards the future, David, what are you most excited about?
Honestly, when I look at how Powersport is today versus what it was 15, 20 years ago, I'm excited for a change in technology, riding dynamics that we're going to bring to customers. Like, think about a two-stroke engine 15 years ago, the smell, the noise, and all that. And where it is today, it's extremely silent, barely zero smell. I think there's going to be a whole new category within Powersports. There's going to be new people. I think it's our job collectively to bring the younger generation into Powersports. And when we see at which speed we're integrating technology in the vehicles, this is going to be a new era in Powersport where we're going to be connected from our phones to our vehicles and experiencing the ride on another facet, I think.
For sure. Dan, what are you most excited about?
The college football playoff tonight. No, joking. You know, I think it's silly. The thing I'm most excited about is the fact that I am wrong all the time. Like, and you know, it takes a little bit of self-awareness to admit that. But like, I think I see where the trends are going, and then sure enough, you know, either another manufacturer or another rider comes out with some new way to engage with the sport or some new product to introduce to new people that totally surprises me. And so what I am most excited about is like, look, we have an awful lot of headwinds for us in this industry, particularly, you know, in the global economy, looking at all the tariff uncertainty and everything. And I'm reminded of, you know, the Henry Ford quote about when everything seems to be against you, remember the plane takes off into the wind and not with it. So, like, I'm a bit of a relentless optimist. And so I'm crazy excited that I know a ton of people who are way smarter than me working on solving product problems and, you know, kind of talk about fulfillment, delivery problems, sales acquisition problems in ways that I had never thought about them. And I know that though it may seem a little bit like you know, a mountain too high to climb at this point in some ways, I don't have that concern because I see people coming through with solutions left and right that are really, really heartening. So I actually feel like we're about to hit a renaissance in Powersports. At least that's my hope.
All right. Well, to your point, what does the road ahead look like?
Blurry because you're going so fast.
Oh,
it looks
That's
great.
quick.
Like, and I mean, the reality is, you know, to do a little bit of a shameless plug, like we've got a very busy dance card on Stark's, you know, 6, 18, 24 month calendar insofar as new product introductions go. And I know, unfortunately, we are not the only OEM who can say that. I say unfortunately because obviously I want us to do great, but you know, the reality is I know that there's a lot of new ways to get more bang for your buck. And just because I don't want to punt, just as an example, if you take our first generation of motorcycles, the external charger weighed, it was in the charging stand that I alluded to earlier, it was like 40, 45 pounds, something like that.
Wow.
When we just launched the SM in October or November, I don't know, time flies. One of the most exciting elements of that launch, to my estimation, was the inclusion of a backpack charger. Not much larger than that bottle of water. It was about 2 kilos, so just under or just around 4 pounds. That's a 90% reduction in weight. Okay? If you look at the greater automotive EV industry, the cost per kilowatt hour of batteries has decreased about 6% normalized over the past 15, 20 years, okay? That means some more, some less, but normalized about 6%. None of those years there was a 90% reduction, okay? And that is the type of focus that we are putting into every contributing element of our motorcycles. And without stealing the thunder of various launches that I may have in the pipeline, it's also what we're looking to introduce in other components and the capabilities of motorcycles that are right around the corner.
Okay, thank you for that. So, out of curiosity, the backpack battery, how much range did that?
Charger,
pardon
yes.
me. How much range did that?
So
does that
it
work?
does not affect range because it's just the charger. We removed the charger from the on-bike architecture for weight savings and performance and whatnot, and we've remained it as an external charger, but reduced its size dramatically so it can fit in a backpack. Or hell, Jean Co's are coming back. You can throw it in the front pocket of one of those. The point is, it's much, much smaller, and that type of radical increase in performance and attractive attributes like size and weight is exactly what we're bringing to other areas, hint, motors and batteries.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me. And David, for the road ahead, what's in store for BRP?
Obviously, I'm not going to unveil product news here, but I think if we look at where BRP was 10, 15 years ago as a manufacturer, and look at 20 years ago, BRP was one of the smallest OEM in the industry. And today, BRP is the largest powersport OEM globally, with 1 out of 3 vehicles being sold is a BRP product. We're strong of 2,700 dealers globally. We have 1,000 dealers here in the US. We're going to continue to invest in R&D. This is what we do every year. We invest shy of $400 million a year in R&D. And it's part of our DNA. This is who we are. We bring innovation to the powersports industry. When we look at our flagship models that we have on side by side, we have our Maverick R here, which is one of the fastest production vehicle in the world. So I'm not afraid of our DNA and our capacity to bring innovation to the market. It's a question of pacing ourselves and making the right choices so that we bring technology at the right price without making any compromises on who we are, which is design, engineering, handling, fit and finish. And this is what it's our design philosophy, it's our build philosophy as well. So BRP is a engineering and a design powerhouse, and this is what we're going to continue to do.
Love it. Well, gentlemen, this has been eye-opening. Thank you so much both for joining us, for all the information, for clarification. So ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our EV panel, and Dan Quick and David Baker, thank you so much for joining us.